What Dalio basically did was raise some important points: income inequality, lackluster public education, stagnant earnings for much of the population, all these things that we are very familiar with. And then the challenge, in my view, or your view, is a policy response. It has nothing to do with capitalism, which is simply where the means of production are it resides in the private sector. But as far as public policy, I certainly see that's what he's talking about. I don't even know if he really understands what he's saying there, but he basically said we need smart people to come up with things and then called it reforming capitalism, right?
Yeah, look, I like what Jamie Dimon said in his annual letter to his shareholders, that the alternative to capitalism is worse, and we know what doesn't work. And I'd like people like Dalio to really dig in to say, okay, what can we do about K-12 education, right? What are things that will work that can be
which is the public sector, is it not? That's not even it's the public sector.
It's, you know, the challenge I see is that I look at our education system. We have amazing universities, including public ones. Look, I teach at a public university. It's a great one. Jason's at a private, a super university. And compare that to K-12. You know, there's a difference there in the standards.
And Jason, you say the same thing. You don't want to talk using the word capitalism, but we don't like crony capitalism. Okay, I'll talk about that. You don't want certain types of capitalism we see as practiced around the world. But is anyone really saying that we want to change the system where buyers and sellers meet in the free market and then decide on how to how to produce things, and that's how capital is allocated? Is anyone saying that we need to move away from that, Jason, or is it policy?
Yeah, look, I'm thrilled Ray Dalio, diagnosed the problem in this way. I wish more people did. Over a decade ago, Alan Greenspan said that inequality was a threat to democratic capitalism. That's a quote. But, I don't find the capitalist versus socialist debate very useful for anything. You look at the Scandinavian countries,
it's not critically important.
They get rated higher on business freedom than the United States does. There's a huge room to move on all sorts of things, including taxes, and still call yourself and actually be a capitalist system. You look at the people running around calling themselves socialists, they're not really advocating the nationalization.
They're talking about redistribution and raising tax. Did you watch the 60 Minutes, you guys, last night? Did you stay for the... Did you stay for the next piece? 60 Minutes, no idea the irony of following Ray Dalio with Ken. I'll see your Dalio, and I'll raise you 5 Ken Langones. So here's Ken. Ken Langone came on afterwards. This is Ken's book, I Love Capitalism. So for NYU Medical School, he put up $100 million, and he raised another $350 so that it's tuition free. Now, this is a guy, he started a company that has 325,000 employees. I think Bridgewater has, 1,700 or so. He created $225 billion in market cap. Even Dalio's answers, don't they involve either using philanthropic funds or tax funds to fix the system? And aren't those funds generated from capitalism? Jason?
Markets are great. In fact, I think we need more markets. I think we have too much concentration.
What about capitalism needs to be reformed, Jason? He said that, and he gave no details, but what needs to be reformed?
Right. I'd say 3 things. I'd say we need 1, more competition.
Okay. Break up the big companies,
2,
you think?
Even with more competition, it's not going to necessarily work for everyone, so you need a way to make work pay. Phil Swagel and I came out with an idea to subsidize work. And then finally, capitalism isn't going to solve some of our biggest problems unless we ask it to. Climate change is one of our biggest problems. We need to ask capitalism to solve that with a carbon tax plus more green infrastructure.
I don't know how that helps inequality, but all right. So, Phil, it's policy, isn't it? I don't know. We're talking around the edges of, I'm not sure what it means to reform capitalism. Do you know?
Okay. Yeah, and can I pick up where Jason left off? Because he and I agree on so much, and we've written together on this, as he said. And so I look at carbon tax and climate. That's something where clearly markets work and markets can solve the problem. And the challenge that our political conversation is going in the opposite direction, right? The people running for office for 2020 are basically saying, look, markets don't work in carbon. We need to have these mandates and inefficiency and things like that. And so, again, the socialism versus markets and capitalism, I would just like markets to work.
Should we?
Yep.
I want to ask Dalio whether. So he's worth $18 billion. Mm-hmm. And in a large part, people like Ray and other billionaires, if you took them out of the income inequality metrics, it doesn't look nearly as bad. I mean, in large part, people like that they take care of 1 million people earning normal amounts, and so that's a large part of the income inequality. I wonder if he would make it harder for him to do what he did. I wonder if he thinks he's a net positive to society, because I think he is. I hope we have more people like Langone and Dalio. Jason, am I wrong there?
Look, I think a lot of capitalists are net positives to society.
But is it a zero-sum game? Is his $18 billion not spread out everywhere else?
I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I don't think it's a zero-sum game. But let's look at the fact that median household income has grown really slowly for the last 30 years. This isn't just people at the top have done better.
It's education, right? But is it charter schools?
Not done well.
Is it public schools? What? Is it charter schools? Is it choice in education? Is it private sector solutions to education? These are all things that we need, but we need money.
Isn't it all of the above?
Maybe, but I don't know. I don't know if it's reforming capitalism.
I don't think it's a debate per se about.
Well, what would you do? What's your answer?
Oh, I think it's a tax story. I think it's actually what Ray talks about, which is it's ultimately a tax story.
And then spend it on what? On education.
And then you have to figure out a way. If you talk about equal opportunity, if that's what we ultimately want in this country,
right.
It has to be about education.
So it's not capitalism; it's about tax policy.
It probably has to do.
I agree.
Healthcare.
So you want to talk tax policy
that are placed on families that can't afford healthcare otherwise, and that goes to the equal opportunity piece of it.
Sounds like policy. All sounds like policy to me. It doesn't sound like capitalism.
And I'll bet when Ray is here live, he will say it's all about policy.
Okay.